A very warm welcome to all of you again. As some of you already might be aware, this session is actually part of a larger series that Google Cloud and Sears have put together. You can consider it our own Netflix special web series that we're doing. But of course, you don't have to have attended the previous session, watch the last episode to, of course, enjoy this one. Um, this particular session is on serverless real-time data analytics on GCP, with serverless and real-time both being keywords here, and that's something that Google Cloud has really been focusing on. And just to introduce our speakers for today, we have Mr. Roman Irani, who is a partner engineer from Google Cloud. He's bringing several years of experience working with clients and enterprises and all customers of Google Cloud, and he'll be giving us some insights on how Google has evolved over the years and what the value proposition from Google Cloud really is, especially when it comes to data analytics. Manan Kshatriya is, as you can probably tell from his surname, he's actually part of our Spartan team at Sears, our Spartan tech team. And he's a senior data engineer with us. He's worked deeply with customers as well. He'll be sharing his insights from working closely on today's session. Just to walk you through the agenda for today, Roman will be giving us an introduction to Google Cloud, what the track record from Google has been, especially when it comes to data analytics. Google being, a data-first company, what the track record has been, what the roadmap looks like, and how some of our customers are actually leveraging these technologies. Manan will then walk us through in more detail some of the use cases that we have worked on, Sears and Google Cloud, with a couple of our customers. And then we'll be going into a quick demo so that you guys get a real hands-on experience of what the services function like. So, Roman, you can begin with your presentation.
Thank you, Aditya, and good afternoon to everyone for joining us today for this webinar. My name is Roman Irani, and my goal here for the next 20 to 25 minutes is going to be, as Aditya mentioned, about explaining to you what Google Cloud is doing in the big data analytics space, especially around real-time serverless. And via this, I'll also go through what's been some of our history around how we've reached over here. I'll also talk about some of the current state of real-time analytics, the challenges that organizations are facing, and then how Google has evolved some of its solutions to address that. And then I'll talk about various services that we have in our big data analytics space, so that you can see how these services you can combine together, and much more of that you'll also see in the upcoming presentations, when you will be seeing a few use cases of how these services have come together to meet specific customer requirements. So to get started, I just wanted to talk first about the fact that data analytics is still hard for customers and organizations to pull off. And it's primarily due to, like, if some of you have been in this space, you would know about the 3 V's of big data, which is around volume, variety, and velocity. So you find that, those challenges do exist. The rate at which you are producing data, the variety of data that it's coming in, it's presenting challenges to organizations to find out whether the platform that they are currently building out or using can address those things. So here are some statistics in terms of both structured as well as unstructured data, right? And so it's quite early days, and organizations are still grappling with the fact that how do we actually harness, what sort of platform can we use today that will help us, not just ingest this data, but even transform, to analyze, to visualize, and much more. But now, given that, there are various, data warehouse or analytics initiatives that organizations have gone on to, but if you look at the challenges that they face today, it's not just about finding out whether the platform can help them do their analytics, but you also find that quite a bit of time, both in terms of number of resources, as well as the time that those teams spend, is on a lot more activities that are sort of not focused directly on analytics. It's to do with just basic operations to make sure that these things are running fine, they're able to scale. So there's a lot of operational overhead that goes into just making that these warehouses that you have today are just able to stay alive, they're able to scale, they're able to ingest that data and so on. And that gives you only a fraction of the time or energy maybe to even just focus on what you wanted to do in the first place, which is to do the analytics. So you find that while organizations have gone onto their data initiatives, they are currently constrained by current capabilities of the data platform that they have, as well as just the challenges to make these platforms keep up and running. Now, having said that, right, here are actually, you can say our customers who have come forward with various data initiatives that they had embarked upon and the specific challenges that they had faced. So if I had to just sort of go through some of the points over here to summarize them in a form that you can now relate to even the 3 V's of big data that you know about, you find that it's to do either with scale of the data growth or the rate at which data is coming in. The platform is not able to keep up to it, not able to refresh itself so that it has the latest data. The third point, which you see around Home Depot, is also very important because we have now reached a, I would say, stage where organizations want to open up data, not just to their internal departments, employees, but even outside, so that you can actually ensure that this data is available to a wider set of users. It's all about democratization of data. So we want to make sure that when we talk about even opening up the data, it should not just enable or foster collaboration, but ensure that the platform is also secure enough and it has the right controls built into it. The fourth point is around machine learning and AI initiatives. Many of the traditional data analytics platforms were not designed from the ground up for them to take on some of the AI ML initiatives that organizations want to go on to. So the challenges are not just about saying that get the data onto the system, be able to take the load, be able to scale with it, but also it should be a platform where it is also ensured from a future perspective that you can still use some of the predictive AI ML techniques that organizations may get to at a certain time in their journey. And of course, the last point comes to the same thing around operational aspects of it, where ideally an organization may want to spend as less time as possible on just making sure that the platform is running and operational versus doing analysis. I'm not saying that an organization will not have the technical ability to do that, but by being a team that simply just takes care of ensuring a platform is running versus maybe focusing all that effort to utilize the platform, let the cloud provider take care of all the other operational aspects there are to it, and you as an organization can focus simply on analytics. So these are real actual challenges that various customers, as you see, came to us that this is the current challenges we are facing and what do you have to sort of address this point. So before we get to the how there are certain I would say different services in GCP that address it, let's first get fundamentally to what Google as a company has been doing from day one. So this is our mission, and I'm sure that all of you have been using Google search and are aware that at the end of the day, our mission is to take in the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. What we mean by that, if you look at the word, right, and which is highlighted, world's information data, right from day one, the sheer volume, variety of data that we have had to sort of index all over the world has been humongous in nature. It's not even ended. It's actually increasing on several orders of magnitude, as we move along. So as a result of that, right, just to sort of harness, ingest this data, normalize it, make sense out of it, and then obviously make it available to developers or to organizations, both in terms of machine learning models as well as APIs, has been something that we have been doing right from our inception. As a result of that, what you see over here on the screen just goes to show that at each point in time, the existing technologies did not meet some of the sheer demands that we had from them to sort of address the volume, variety, and velocity of data that was coming in, and obviously to make sense out of it afterwards also. So if you just focus on the middle tier, where there are different Google papers over the years that have been published, these papers have been released to open source, which have then seen best in breed open source implementations that have come out from organizations. But at the same time, you will also find that in the Google Cloud products, which you see at the bottom ribbon there, these are managed services that we have now also made available as part of our Google Cloud platform. Again, interoperable with the open source technologies. So should you be already using those as an organization, you can start using these from day one, because the integration as well as the interoperability is a given. So you can see that at every step in time in this whole timeline, there have been innovations that we have had to do just to ensure that whether it's to do with our standard technologies out there, but even sort of come up with other specialized databases to help address this. So just one more slide where I wanted to highlight that at the end of the day, right, when we are talking about data analytics, it's to do with where will I store my data. Now, as you know that the data could be structured or it could be unstructured, but even if you start sort of categorizing it as how you're seeing over here, maybe you're looking for in-memory databases, or maybe it's to do with relational or non-relational databases, the NoSQL type, or even special, I would say, or specific databases that we have come up with, like Cloud Spanner, Cloud Bigtable, even Object Store, Blob Store, and of course at the end you see the warehouse, which is BigQuery. Now, in all of this stuff, if you see, right, it's not about saying that, hey, we believe this database is going to be good for you. We are giving a choice on our platform. Depending upon your requirements, like we've also given some of the examples that it could be good for what and such as, right? So depending upon your requirements, use case, what you actually want to build out, we are giving this choice to the consumers that we've got all of these options available, depending upon, what kind of structure you would require for a database, what could be very specific, requirements that you may have. For example, in the financial or the IoT space, if you require a database that's, needs very heavy read as well as write, then that's like Cloud Bigtable, which you have it. We use some of these databases for our own internal products, also like Gmail. So the choice is given, to customers depending upon what database they would want. Now, having said that, let's come back to the theme of it, which was serverless data analytics. So to reiterate this part, right, our philosophy in the data services that we have on Google Cloud Platform is to ensure that what you do typically with traditional data warehouses, you see all of these activities out there. A majority of them have been put in red, whereas there's one in blue, which is analysis and insight. So what we're trying to put forward as a message over here is that, yes, you have to do the analysis and insights. That's the kind of tools that the platform will offer to you to, make sense of your data. But at the same time, in traditional data warehouses, you also end up doing a lot of the other things which you're seeing over here. So basically, you have a whole team, as I earlier mentioned, to ensure that they're maintaining the software, they're applying patches, taking care of security. If there's a sudden spike or an extra, usage, and it's able to scale or not. So you find that when we look at this picture, ideally we want to get to something what you're seeing over here, which is let we as a cloud provider or as a platform provider take care of all the other aspects. Of course, we will give you the knobs and settings so that in case you want to tune a few things, we go with some sensible defaults, but we'll still give you that flexibility to do so. But at a larger scale, we will take care of all the operational aspects of it. You don't worry about the underlying compute network and the storage that may go on behind the scenes in order to address some of your queries. So in our philosophy, or the way we are approaching any of the design for our services, is to purely go with the serverless data analytics, so that you focus on analytics and insights. We give you the tools for that, whereas we take care of the heavy lifting behind the scenes to ensure that the infrastructure is able to meet your requirements. So whenever it comes to either scale up or scale down, we'll take care of that. And again, it's backed with full security as well as the global network that we have behind the scenes. So the same global network that is running, most of the consumer apps which you are using today, like Gmail or Drive and other docs, which are like a billion active users daily, the same infrastructure is the one on which all of these services also run. So to summarize over here, serverless data analytics, we want to take away all the operational aspects of it, whereas you focus on using the tools to get the insights. Now, having said that, what are the suite of services that make up our complete data analytics platform? Well, this might look a bit, I would say overwhelming. And I'm sure that our sessions, which are coming up after mine, which will take a look at specific use cases of how some of these services have been combined together, it'll all start making sense. But what I'm going to do over here is actually show to you that when you look at a typical data pipeline, we've got tools that are there at each stage of the pipeline. So in order to, sort of understand this slide deck, I suggest that we start first on the top, where different stages of the data pipeline is shown to you, like capture, process, store, analyze, and use. So basically the first stage, right, which is capture. It's all about saying that first you have to get the data onto our platform. So what are the tools we have? What are the services we've got in order to help you move your data, not just from your on-premises, but maybe even if you've got it in other cloud providers, we've got various services that are there, like data transfer service, storage transfer service, that help you move the data, in a batch fashion behind the scenes, by automatic error handling, etc., to move the data into our cloud. Obviously, we also give you a programmatic way of using something like a Cloud PubSub, which is our global messaging infrastructure, to help integrate, even if you've got your applications running, anywhere else, to sort of ingest or send data into our system. Now, having talked about the ingestion part, typically the first thing that should come to your mind, and which is also one of the themes of this webinar, is we're saying real time. Now, if you look at ingestion, right, traditionally, the platforms are designed for a batch load. So basically, you export your file, you maybe point to the files which need to be imported, and then you run sort of a background job, which takes its own time depending upon the volume of the data and, of course, what the complexity of your pipeline might be. And then eventually it makes that data ready for analysis. But obviously, we have seen that, given the current world that we are living in, the rate at which data is getting generated and the insights that organizations want, they want it in near real time. Gone are the days where you'll say, hey, we are okay with probably getting a report 24 or 48 hours later, and then we'll act on it. Sure, it could still apply to certain kinds of analysis or insights you want from what's happening from your business point of view. But in many cases, we are seeing that in near real time, organizations want to understand what's happening. They want to then accordingly react and do the next step in the rest of the downstream applications. So what we're talking at the process step is that we need a service that addresses in a unified fashion both batch data as well as real-time data. And that's precisely what Cloud Data Flow is all about. It provides a uniform programming model, whether your data is coming in batch mode or in real-time mode. And Cloud Data Flow is our fully managed service of the open source Apache Beam product. So if you've been using that, basically Cloud Data Flow is a fully managed service. Apart from that, should you want to move on-premise Hadoop workloads also, or basically look at a fully managed Hadoop service, for those of you who have been actually responsible for running a Hadoop cluster, you understand the complexities and operational aspects that go beyond it. In Cloud Data Proc, we've got a fully managed Hadoop service that helps you provision a Hadoop cluster, run your big data jobs, and once the data is into the destination, it can even tear down the cluster for you, so in a fully managed way. Cloud Data Prep is a GUI-based service that helps you look at your data, visualize it, analyze it, write some transformations, etc. So really in the process space, what we are talking about, and Cloud Data Flow, if I just come back to it, is a fairly, I would say, both complex product to use at times, but it gives you that kind of powerful capability. So you could literally transform the data, aggregate it, filter it, remove duplicates, even look at time-bound slices of your data to do aggregation and so on and so forth. What comes out of the process thing is data that might be temporarily still to be processed further, or data that's ready for analysis. So that's where we put our data either in a BigQuery, which is a structured storage, but that's our serverless data warehouse. And potentially, if you've got other blob storage kind of requirements, you could put that in cloud storage too. Once data is there, is stored, basically that's where the BigQuery analysis engine comes in. BigQuery is our flagship product. I have a slide coming up later. Basically, this is our product which, if you've not seen, I strongly suggest take a look at it. Literally, petabytes of data could be queried in a few seconds, and that's the kind of power it gives. Again, BigQuery, if you look at it, it allows for both batch data ingestion as well as it's got an real-time ingestion API. So that's a first-class citizen here. So it supports both kind of data that you can potentially integrate into it, and even run standard SQL queries to get data off it. And BigQuery, I have a slide coming up later, even has support now for ML. So you could do your machine learning, both regression and classification models right within BigQuery itself. Once your data is analyzed, so this could be ad hoc queries using standard SQL. Potentially after that, you might want to export that data out to do your ML workflows. You want to build ML models, possibly use TensorFlow frameworks, or even many of our pre-trained models are exposed via APIs like the vision, video, natural language, speech to text, text to speech. All of those form part of our cloud AI services. Optionally, you might want to export that data onto sheets, or even maybe use visualization tools like Data Studio or Looker or Tableau and so on. What you see at the bottom, Cloud Data Fusion, is all about sort of stringing this whole thing together via UI-based tools. So you can actually say, here's my source data, here's my target data. In the middle, I may have some transformations. So it strings together the whole pipeline. Data Catalog is more about metadata about the different data sources that you might have. Whereas Cloud Composer gives you a programmatic way. It's based on Apache Airflow, and you can actually run this entire integrated pipeline. So again, tons of things maybe to digest, but you will see that when we cover specific use cases, you can mix and match some of these services in order to meet your data pipeline requirements. Having said that, just wanted to highlight BigQuery over here, which is our serverless data warehouse. Again, at enterprise scale, supports standard SQL. All of the data that you put in BigQuery, we give you the option even of where you want to store your data. All data is encrypted, durable, and highly available because we keep multiple copies of that across different zones in that region. More importantly, it's completely serverless. A ton of compute, storage, network that might be required behind the scenes to execute your queries is taken care of by the platform itself. That's the serverless nature that comes in. I earlier mentioned that it's not just batch data, but it also supports real-time insights. It's got inbuilt ML itself, so you want to not export your data, but build ML models right within BigQuery using SQL-like statements. You can do that too. And of course, when we say insights for everyone, that's again about the fact that BigQuery data sets you can expose to the right users, right groups. You can ensure column level filtering and much more, so that the right users see the right kind of data and also perform the right kind of operations which you have authorized them to do. Moving forward, just a few words on our AI aspect of AI suite of services also. You find an entire spectrum over here. So it could be from organizations that are just taking their first steps in AI versus organizations that already have a capable machine learning team, right? So depending upon where you are, you can either use our pre-trained model APIs, which you see on the left side. So we've got vision API, video intelligence, speech to text, text to speech, and much more, including even a chatbot development framework or Dialogflow. So these are REST-based APIs or easy-to-use environments, so that without knowing too much of ML also, you can take your first step. On the right side extreme is where you've already got a team that's capable. So they could build out custom models using frameworks like TensorFlow, maybe even use custom, not custom, but we've got cloud TPUs, tensor processing units. This is very specific hardware available on Compute Engine, which your data science teams can use to speed up the rate at which they will build the models But we also understand that majority of organizations might already have the data. They might have the data that's labeled and might just say, hey, can you help us with just building the model? So that's where AutoML stuff does the middle ground there, where we say, you give us your label data, and we will do the hard work of figuring out what's the best algorithm for this, how do we build out the model for you. We give you the analysis, and once you're okay with it, we will host this model for you and also give you a REST-based API via which you can do your inferencing as needed. So basically, we are again addressing and opening it up, whether you're just a developer who's capable of using REST APIs, or if you are already familiar with data science tools, we've got the solutions there itself for you. Again, gives a choice depending upon your current skills as well as your current use cases that you may want to target. So the reason we are winning, just to give you a brief thing, is again, we are focused on analytics, not infrastructure. That's the serverless part that comes over here. We'll allow you to build a complete comprehensive solution using all these services. You'll see several demonstrations of that coming up. We provide, or in the third part, when we're talking about ML, we are saying that the platform is already ready for you to even do your AI ML initiatives as and when you want to get there. Yeah. In terms of total cost, right? This is a survey again done. You'll find that when we talk about cost, we talk about total cost of ownership. So when we say TCO, that's a much better indicator because it's not just about your cloud costs, but really how much of other costs that you're incurring just to keep other platforms running, whether it's on-premise or even other competitor products. So this independent research has also clearly showed that the total cost of ownership for our BigQuery products is definitely several magnitudes lower than other competitive products, whether in the cloud or on-premise. To again go back to what some of those customers achieved by moving on to our platform, you will see certain trends over here. So you will see that in the first case, it actually reduced the analysis time from 20 seconds to 20 seconds from 5 days. This is primarily because of the power of BigQuery. Once you get your data in, once you've created the right queries, etc., then you find that the speed at which it executes is a dramatic several orders of magnitude faster than what you were used to in the batch mode. The other one is all about 300 queries and streams, 140 million events per day. This is about the scale that it can operate it and also the velocity that it can actually take in. AirAsia was all about digital transformation. So this was primarily about an ability to not just run your queries faster, but also open it up to multiple teams so that the whole data democratization is possible. So just wanted to share some of these things and what some of the customers got by moving on to our platform. So to summarize, this is my final slide. You can think of our solution in this manner, where you may have various data sources that you could have, which you need to ingest into our platform. Again, depending upon various third-party products that you might be using, we've got 100+ connectors that can help you get data into our system or into our data warehouse. That's what we're calling the automate the data delivery to data warehouse, either in streaming or batch mode, right? I told you can support both of it. Once it's there in our data warehouse, that from there, you can either do your ad hoc queries or potentially do your ML modeling and gain insights that way, as well as export it out, let your departments or different teams visualize things via dashboards and so on, right? That's the overall solution that we have on Google to address both real-time and batch data analytics via a single product services. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to hand over to Manan Kshatriya to take forward with the next presentation.
Thank you, Roman. That was quite a comprehensive introduction to Google Cloud for our listeners. Now I'll be sharing my screen. So yeah, now we'll be switching over and we'll be talking about the case studies, which particularly revolve around the serverless services in Google Cloud. So I'll do a quick recap for everyone and I'll introduce the services once again. So PubSub is a messaging system that lets you send and receive events. It doesn't require you to define read or write throughputs during the creation. It is totally serverless with a global endpoint and it's not a regional service. it has a global endpoint, and data can be ingested to PubSub from any region, irrespectively. So moving on, Dataflow lets you build data pipelines to handle complex data processing either in batch or real time, and automatically handles distributing those jobs in parallel. So as Romin mentioned, Dataflow is runner for the pipeline that you can write using Apache Beam, which is an open source data processing framework. And BigQuery is a serverless data warehouse that lets you upload data, even petabytes of data, and write queries without dealing with provisioning, capacity, sharding, indexing, any management overhead. Okay, we'll move on to our first case study, which is about Bharat Light and Power. So it's an IoT-based company which migrated to Google Cloud from an on-premise environment in a serverless fashion. So BLP is a technology company which operates in the field of renewable energy generation. It is responsible for ingesting data from multiple sensors, processing it, and displaying business KPIs to their clients on a web application-based live dashboards. So BLP was running its operations in an on-premise environment, and as the data was growing, they were facing challenges to keep up with the growth. One of the primary concerns was doing real-time transformations on the incoming streaming data. Another challenge the client faced was the IoT devices going offline sporadically, and when they come back online, they send surge of data which needs to be handled with auto scaling. All in all, they realized that they needed to move to a more agile platform for their needs. So this is how the architecture looks like of the analytics pipeline on GCP. The data, so to give a brief overview, data is ingested via Cloud IoT Core, which is a managed IoT device handling service in Google Cloud. And it is ingested in a secured way, forwarded to PubSub, and then Dataflow pulls the incoming messages and writes to multiple sinks. Talking about the first branch, it pushes the raw data to Cloud Bigtable, which is a low latency and massively scalable NoSQL database in Google Cloud. And from there on, custom Java applications query the data in Bigtable, calculates the business KPIs, and pushes it to MySQL, which is then read by the custom web application on the Kubernetes. And secondly, Dataflow partitions the data into fixed windows and writes to cloud storage to maintain a raw journal of all the ingested data points. Talking about PubSub, Cloud PubSub decouples the messages ingested via Cloud IoT Core from the downstream analytics stack and hence increases the reliability. Uh, PubSub is a global service and not a regional service. So leveraging this fact, it made the architecture more simple because the devices were spread out across the globe for the client, and they needed to only send it to one global API endpoint, and then it went to a nearest pop location, and then the Google it was further sent to a data flow in a Google backbone network, and clients don't need to make separate topics for separate reasons. So one PubSub topic is a global API endpoint. Cloud Dataflow was chosen because of its auto-scaling capabilities based on throughput and the rich transformations and the windowing schemes which are available as part of the Apache Beam SDKs, and its native integration with almost all of the GCP services. So this holistic serverless architecture removed the management overhead for the client significantly. So we'll look at some features available in the data flow, which increases your pipeline performance and helps in cost saving as well. So in any data processing framework, aggregating data or windowing streaming data requires shuffling, which is data being exchanged between the worker nodes in order to compute the required results. Similarly, in data flow, there are several transformations like grouping by key, combining by key, or weaving of data, which results in shuffling of data. And these are the quite common transformations in data processing you can see. So normally the shuffle data is stored in the disks attached to the VMs, which makes it stateful and less fault tolerant. So this is where the data flow shuffle comes into picture. With data flow shuffle, the shuffle operation is moved out of the worker VMs and into the managed backend service. As a result, The execution time of the batch or streaming pipelines improves if it is heavily using transforms, which involves shuffling. Also, it makes autoscaling relatively faster and increases fault tolerance because VM will not be holding any stateful data. Leveraging it in a streaming pipeline is as easy as mentioning the parameter when launching the pipeline and requires no code changes to accommodate this feature. Now we'll talk about the flexible resource scheduling feature, which is available for batch data flow pipelines, and it uses data flow shuffle along with few other optimization techniques. So using data flow shuffle allows FlexRS to handle the preemption of the worker VM better, because as we discussed, the data flow service does not have to redistribute the data to the remaining workers because the state is not stored in the VM disks. This gives the liberty to use preemptible VMs heavily. I'll give a short introduction for what is preemptible VMs in Google Cloud. Preemptible VMs are short-lived VMs and are 80% cheaper than on-demand VM and can live up to 24 hours maximum. Moving back to FlexRS, FlexRS will allocate preemptible VMs for 90% of the worker fleet when you use FlexRS for your batch workload. And FlexRS should be used for non-time critical jobs because Dataflow places the job into a queue and submits it for execution within 6 hours. So it finds the best time to start the job within that time window, and based on the available capacity and other factors, it will launch the job when it is ready, and it will result into significant cost savings for your batch workloads on Dataflow. We saw how we can run Dataflow for an IoT based architecture, but that is not the limit for the usage of Dataflow. Dataflow can be useful in many domains, including marketing analytics, data lake modernization, and etc. So here is a reference architecture for mobile game analytics platform. To give a brief overview, mobile game applications generate a large amount of player telemetry and game event data. So this data has the potential to provide insights into player behavior and their engagement with the game. So this is how Dataflow can play a part in this architecture and can provide some use cases. The first being joining elements with other data sources. For example, joining a table of usernames to player statistics. Another use case being real-time validation of the input data to detect any fraud, and can be used for fraud detection as well in real time. Another being data cleansing, such as ensuring that the event message is well formed and matches the BigQuery schema before you ingest it into BigQuery. And this was the streaming use cases of Dataflow here. And similarly, Dataflow used for batch-based scenarios as well. For example, data generated from Google Play Store, like reviews, installs, crash, and application not responding reports stored in Google Cloud Storage, can be transformed and ingested to BigQuery for further analytics using batch workloads on Dataflow. In the bottom, you can see another, you can browse through many architectures and the use cases of Dataflow available on the GCP blog. So all in all, DLP was able to set up pipelines for real-time and batch transformations without having to worry about scalability. So as we discussed in the architecture, that their web app supports monitoring, reporting, and analytics over 2,000 devices across the globe. And after migrating to Google Cloud, they have observed reductions in Google costs and increase in the manufacturing productivity. So now we'll be shifting our focus on learning how Sears set up real-time analytics in BigQuery for a food delivery startup. So this was the problem statement. Client was running FTP workload on AWS Aurora and MySQL database, and running analytical workloads on Aurora along with read replicas. So they were running analytical queries on AWS Aurora itself, and it was taking a very long time, around 1 hour, to get the results. And They wanted to move the data to a data warehouse, and they explored many options available to them for the data warehouses, but many of them did not meet their expectations for several reasons. So finally, they decided to set up the data warehouse in Google BigQuery due to several benefits it offers. First being, they already had their analytical queries prepared with them, so they can use the same analytical queries with little modification in Google BigQuery, because Google BigQuery is ANSI Standard SQL 2011 compliant. Second being, Google BigQuery offers streaming inserts API, using which the data is available in few seconds only after getting ingested to be queried and to get insights from. Third being no ops. So you might know very well till now that BigQuery is totally serverless, and comparing to other data warehouses on clouds, it removes all the management overhead. You don't have to set up VMs. You don't have to guess your throughput, and you don't have to worry about reliability and encryption and all those things. So BigQuery really takes that away from you, and it gives you a totally serverless and managed data warehouse. We'll shortly talk about scheduled queries in Data Studio as well, how the client use scheduled queries to solve one of their requirements. So this is how the flow looked like. The source is MySQL tables in Amazon Aurora, from which multiple dimension tables were replicated to BigQuery in real time via Stitch. So Stitch is a SaaS product for ETL, which is available as a partner solution in Google Cloud. We chose Stitch because the client wanted to get started quickly with a completely managed ETL service. The analytical queries were then run in BigQuery to generate fact tables with sub-second response times. So now we'll talk about some of the techniques that we can leverage in BigQuery to increase the performance and lower our costs as well. So partitioning is a technique to save costs by scanning less data and in turn increasing the query performance. Partitioning can be enabled in a table based on a date or timestamp column present in the schema. And if the date column is absent, we also have an option to partition the table on the ingestion time, which is automatically generated by BigQuery based on the time when the row was written. Leveraging partitioning is as easy as using a where clause involving the partitioned column in the query. This will scan only the necessary partitions, which will result in scanning less bytes and hence saving costs. As you can see in the image, that using just a where clause and a date, it only scans 700 MB of data, whereas the table contains GBs and GBs of data. And BigQuery, you are priced on the number of data you scan, and this significantly reduces the cost in turn. One more requirement we had was to send weekly reports via email to the management team, and we needed to automate this. So this is where we use the schedule query feature. And to give an overview, as the name suggests, it lets you schedule recurring queries. So after the query ran, BigQuery sends an event to the Cloud PubSub, which in turn triggers Cloud Function. Cloud Function is a serverless execution environment in which you can write simple single-purpose functions that are attached to an event. So when the Cloud Function was triggered, it went to the cloud storage and it went to the particular file, and it took that file and in the CSV file and then send the signed URL in the email to the management team, which can then view the CSV file and from their email itself. So this is how we leverage scheduled queries. Moving on and talking about the visualization tool available in Google Cloud Platform. So it's Data Studio. So Data Studio, in Data Studio, you can create detailed dashboards and graphs on top of BigQuery tables, blend them with other available data sources, and share it across with your team easily. Data Studio allows you to connect to various data sources quickly and easily. Data sources act as a pipes to connect a Data Studio report to a collection of underlying data. Each source has a unique pre-built connector to ensure your data is easy to access and use. Data is natively integrated and is directly based on the underlying data sets. making updates super simple. So all in all, we were successfully able to set up near real-time replication of tables to BigQuery, optimizing some of the analytical queries to leverage the BigQuery functions, and hence query execution times on BigQuery were reduced to sub-seconds from hours. Talking about another use case that we solved, we helped Tata Steel to build data lake and enterprise data warehouse so that they can take advantage of advanced analytics and machine learning. To begin with, Tata Steel had tons of data in silos, which was waiting to be mined for intelligence and insights. The initial major challenge was that each plant or each factory stored their data in different format and different technologies, which made overall analysis harder since it was not getting collated in a central repository. Sears built a solution on top of services like Cloud Function, Dataflow, and Dataproc to transform and push data to BigQuery once it was available in Google Cloud Storage in its raw format on a daily basis. We created SQL queries to merge multiple dimension tables to and form fact tables in BigQuery and use scheduled query feature of BigQuery to update the tables regularly. As a result, Tata Steel's dashboards and graphs in Tableau were powered by BigQuery, and they were able to build advanced machine learning models using AI platform on Google Cloud and fuel their use cases like forecasting market demand and predicting equipment maintenance in the plants and factories. So now we'll look at how these services blend together with each other in a demo. So this is the overview of what we'll do now. We'll set up Cloud PubSub and we'll then ingest data from Cloud PubSub and we'll run a job in Dataflow, which will pull it from PubSub and ingest it into BigQuery. And then we'll make some sample reports and dashboards in Data Studio, which will pull data from BigQuery in real time. Now I'll present my whole screen. So this is the console for Cloud PubSub. So generating and creating a topic in Cloud PubSub is as easy as giving just a name for that particular topic, and that's it. And we have to manage set up the encryption. And here I can choose the Google managed key for the encryption. So I have already created a topic named San Diego Highway. So we'll be ingesting data of sample IoT data for a highway in San Diego, which has multiple lanes, and it clocks the speed of the cars passing through, and it will push it to PubSub. Okay. So we'll start the data flow job as well. But before starting the data flow job, we'll create a sample table in BigQuery as well. So I've already created a data set in BigQuery. Now we'll create an empty table in BigQuery. So this is how the console of the BigQuery looks like. And this is where I can create an empty table based on a schema. So I'll name the table current conditions of the highway data, which in this table I'll stream the real-time data. I already have the schema available with me, and I can put that as a JSON. And I can go and directly create an empty table here. Now we'll start a data flow job. So this is, I have made one small shell file which takes inputs of the name and the staging bucket attached to it. And I'll be explaining. So this is the Maven command basically, which will compile and build the Apache Beam project that I have created, and then it will submit the job to the data flow, which will I have already mentioned cloud PubSub topics and the sync in the BigQuery in the job itself. So this is the command what I ran, giving the project name and the buckets and the location, the region where to deploy the data flow job as well. So as you can see, it's building and then pushing and creating the data flow job. Moving on to the data flow console. As you can see, the job has started streaming. Meanwhile, we'll start our Python publisher as well, which will push the data to Cloud PubSub. Here, speed factor means it will, I have a sample data available in a CSV, and it will take that data from CSV and it will send 30 minutes worth of data in just 1 minute. As you can see, it has started publishing events, and then it will sleep for 10 seconds and it will publish another 500 events. So this is how the data flow console looks like. Based on our code, it has extracted the execution graph, and here you can see the top element actions and transformations in our code. So first is get messages. So it is basically an action to pull message from the PubSub topic, and then it will extract data. Extract data is another transformation which it will convert from JSON string to a Java object, which I have defined, which it's available in the code. So it will convert from a JSON string to a Java object. Then it will pull the informations from that Java object and create a BigQuery row object. And in the final step, it will write to BigQuery as a final step. On the right hand side, you can see all the job parameters that are attached to this data flow job. So the job type is streaming, and the SDK versions and the region and encryption. As you can see, I did not set up any servers, so it automatically scaled to 1 VM, which has 4 vCPU and 15 GB memory. On the down, you can see additional metrics like bytes written, and it is a custom counters that Dataflow provides to us. And there are many other pipeline options available to us as well, like the staging location and the temp location and the job name. On the down, you can see the logs available, which the logs of the job available to us, and it is integrated with Stackdriver. Stackdriver is the common logging and monitoring tool in for all the Google Cloud services in Google Cloud. So it integrates with Stackdriver logging as well. Here you can see logs for each of the worker. Currently, we have only one worker, but if you have many workers and if you want to dig down on the problems, then we can filter the logs by each worker. Here is the job separate tab for error reporting as well. As you can see, it has started ingesting the data and writing to BigQuery. So I can click on each transformation and see the metrics for that particular transformation as well. So here you can see this transformation has pulled 6,000 elements till now, and this is the estimated bytes that it has output from this transformation. Similarly, if I click to this transformation, I will get to know what was the input that it collected from the first transformations, and similarly so on. It will show the output collections metrics for the output collections as well. To look at the overall job metrics, we can switch to this tab, and it will show the overall job metrics overall job metrics. So it will show metrics such as data freshness, system latency, and auto scaling, and the overall throughput and metrics like that. We can also create our custom metrics in Stackdriver monitoring as well. So here we can see it is writing to BigQuery. So we'll So if I click onto one table in BigQuery, so this is how the console looks like. Here I can see the schema of my table along with the data type and the mode, which can be nullable, or it means it's an optional field. And if it is required, then it means it's a necessary column to have the data. And here I can see the descriptions and the labels and the table information. One of the things attached with streaming API is it is readily available, and after 90 minutes it will be stored in the original table, but it's ready to be queried. So till now it has ingested 8,000 rows till now since we started our publisher, and we'll see shortly that we will be querying this streaming data only to build our dashboards. To look how the data looks like, we don't have to write a query and then look how my data looks like. But if you just want to preview it, there is a tab for preview where you can see how the data looks like, and you will be not incurring any costs for previewing your data. So here we have timestamp, latitude and longitude of the sensor, and which highway is the sensor installed, and the direction and the lane, and at what speed the car was going when it clocked with the sensor. And this is a sensor ID given to each sensor on the highway. So now we'll move on to Data Studio. So this is how the console of the Data Studio looks like. To attach my data sources, I can click on to add data, and these are all the connectors available in Data Studio out of the box. So things like Google Sheets, which is heavily used, BigQuery, Google Ads, Google Analytics, you can directly connect to these sources and readily querying them without setting up anything. Okay, I already went to BigQuery and selected my projects and my data set and my table name to set this up. So I'll insert a sample bar chart. And I'll add one metric to count the number of vehicles grouped by highway. So here I can create one custom metric that I want. So what I'll do is I'll count my sensor IDs. Just a second. Sorry, I'm typing in the name. So I have defined one metric which it will count the number of sensor IDs per highway. So for each clocking of a vehicle, a new row is generated. So basically we are counting that and grouping by the highway. So as you can see, it's in real time, it is getting ingested into BigQuery, and then you can build graphs and dashboards on top of that streaming data. Another bar chart I'll insert, which for looking at the average speed by highway, maximum speed, and the minimum speed as well. So if you have a SQL query readily available with you, and if you don't want to create custom metrics by clicking for each and every metric, what you can do is you can just paste your SQL query here, And then I'll have columns like maximum speed, minimum speed, and average speed to select from in the UI. So I can just go here and add metrics like average speed, maximum speed, and minimum speed. I'll just give the names so that you can see the actual data as well. So this is how easily we can build dashboards and on top of streaming data in BigQuery. So here we can see it's 10K and 4K, but now if I refresh it, it has increased to 13K based on the new rows that are getting ingested into BigQuery, and it has moved to 13K, 5K, and similarly this count has been updated as well. So yeah, so this was the overall demo of pushing data to PubSub, ingesting via Dataflow and ingesting into BigQuery and processing via Dataflow, and building charts on top of BigQuery in a totally serverless manner. Thank you. That's it from my side. Aditya, you can.
Thanks a lot for the detailed explanation of the case studies and the demo. I think a lot of our participants here will now have had a good idea, a good look of what these products feel like. I think as a parting word from Sears, an introduction again from Sears. Actually, today is a red letter day for Sears. It's been 16 years since we were founded, exactly 16 years today. And we were founded as basically a born in cloud company, as a product engineering company. And back in 2006, we started using G Suite internally. And we realized how powerful that was as a collaboration tool. And then we took it to some of our clients. And then we realized how effective these companies had become using G Suite. And so we started taking G Suite to more products. We got on board as a partner, actually. And then in 2009, when App Engine was launched, it was before Google Cloud was formally launched. There was App Engine. So we developed a product on top of App Engine, and we got expertise with App Engine. And when Google Cloud was actually formally launched in India, we were in a great position to take GCP as well to those customers that we had. And it's been a great story since 2015, actually. We were the first partner globally to attain the status of a premier partner. And on the slide, you can see how many other milestones we've had so far. So just a brief explanation, I think, while we move to the next slide. We have had customers across India in all segments. We have traditionally been very strong with digital native customers, startups, even large enterprises which were digital native. But of late, we've had, as Manan has explained, we've had more traditional kind of corporations, Tata Steel, we've had like Fasos, InShots have been our customers. So we're now expanding in other domains and other industries as well. Thanks a lot, guys, for attending the session. It's been a pleasure. Thanks to the speakers as well, Roman and Manan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.